This is the book that I wish we had had when we embarked on our journey a couple years ago. In the run up to our trip, we read tons of books on budget travel, travelogues from different parts of the world, and every family travel memoir we could find. But the authors were all super vague on how they kept up with their kids' education on the road. And when we first started thinking about a trip like this in 2017, world schooling wasn't even really a term. And I think it was still in its infancy when we set off in 2022. But as COVID normalized remote work and the digital economy has grown, the digital nomad economy has grown, more families are considering alternate ways of living without necessarily feeling tethered to one place. And so as we talked to friends and family we met on the road, it just became obvious that if there were a clearer way to figure out the kids' education piece of things, it would be a missing puzzle piece for a lot of families. I wrote as we went along over the course of a year abroad. It was my way of journaling and processing the experiences we were having. And in the moment, I was primarily capturing scenes. I think it's only when you step back and pull together the threads across time that you can kind of see the full tapestry. And one of the things that became really clear with distance and kind of surprised me a little was how palpably the kids grew and matured over the trip. So in Morocco, which was our first stop, you could really feel their trepidation because it was all so overwhelming and loud. It was such a different culture that they'd grown up with motorbikes whizzing close and touts crowding in and new sights, smells, cuisines. They really did kind of stay close to us. They deferred to us. They weren't as talkative with strangers or new people that we met. They were a little tentative in trying new things. And as you fast forwarded 3, 6, 9 months to our experiences in the Middle East, in South America, in Asia, they were pretty different kids. They definitely got much more comfortable with ambiguity, with navigating new experiences, with not speaking a language, but still figuring out how to communicate with locals, and just became so much more comfortable in their own skin as we went along. So I think it was perspectives like that that came into relief after pulling back across the arc of our travels. Resilience and adaptability were definitely skills that we all got better at. I think those are muscles that you learn to flex. So we didn't tend to plan very far ahead deliberately. That gave us a lot of flexibility to listen to locals or to get a sense of how we were feeling and where we wanted to go or what we wanted to do. When you're traveling for a long period and on a budget, there will be things that go awry. And so rolling with the punches or having a good sense of humor and just kind of going with the flow are critical. We had flights cancel. We had nights that we slept on the airport floor. There was disaster in super rural Egypt. Brandy had a scorpion sting in Jordan. And so you figure it out and build that resilience muscle, which I think serves us well in any situation. We went into the trip with a fairly well mapped out vision and plan for how we were going to approach the educational aspect for our kids. So our plan included a mix of content very tailored to our travels and material that we knew we were going to follow pretty verbatim with online materials. So, and we also divvied up the subjects that we were going to teach. But the specifics of how we did things did evolve as we went along. We learned a lot about the kids' learning styles and what worked for them. Finn, for example, is a really strong auditory learner. So after the first few months, we started incorporating audiobooks in addition to reading, and that worked really well for him. Also, both kids struggled at first with fitting in time for their journaling or assignments because we were on the go so much. So we learned as a family that we needed to carve out more dedicated blocks of time for them to make it easier. And it also became clear for them that they needed concrete weekly goals to keep them on track and to have a concrete sense of, okay, this is what you need to accomplish by the end of the week to stay on track for the year. The one point I'd make for people who are thinking about embarking on something like this is to just stay in communication. Talk regularly about what's working, what's not working, what improvements can be made, and be willing to flex, because you might go in with one approach and find that it needs adjusting, and that's fine. I think you'll find what works for you. As a family, early in the trip, we watched a really great documentary called The Last Tourist, which examines the impact of mass tourism on local communities, wildlife, and the environment. So the film talks a lot about exploitative tourism practices, which unfortunately often harm the very places that travelers are seeking to experience. It also talks about how responsible travel can be a force for good, and it emphasizes the importance of supporting local economies, respecting cultures, and minimizing environmental impact. And so that was a really powerful notion, and one that resonated with us a lot. And to me, that's the heart of traveling with purpose. It's about seeking authentic and meaningful experiences, not just checking off bucket list spots. It's about engaging with local cultures and communities, choosing ethical tour operators, which was something we were always really mindful of, staying in locally owned accommodations, and just ensuring overall that our presence leaves a positive impact rather than contributing harm. I think the notion of purposeful travel encourages a shift from extractive tourism, where it's just all about what do I get out of it, to a more thoughtful and intentional way of exploring the world that hopefully fosters real connection and friendships and learning and a shared sense of responsibility for the places and people that we encounter. Part of what worked really well for us in the lead up to the trip was having a long runway. So we spent 5 years actively saving to be able to take a year as a family to travel. And we talked to the kids about it throughout, not all the time, but just here and there. And so they could process on their own time. And also so they could be part of the planning and the ideation and feel ownership of this big trip that we were going to do. And I think at a certain point, it became so ingrained in our family narrative that it was almost like, oh, of course, this is just what our crazy family is going to do. So it never really occurred to them that we wouldn't do it. And throughout, our kids were a big part of brainstorming and being part of that planning. So for destinations, about 6 months before we left, we bought a big world map and started putting pins in it of places that we were excited to travel to. And a pin didn't necessarily mean that we were going to go there. It just gave us a collective sense of where our interests lay. And then we chose 3 places that each of us really, really wanted to go to. And everybody had to research a little bit about them and then make a pitch over dinner about why we should try to make it there. And we did make it to at least one of each of our wish list places on the trip. We did spend a lot of time trying to make sure that maybe not fully democratic, but that the kids' decisions and inputs were taken into account. So we had a lot of family meetings to figure out, again, what was working, what wasn't working, and how we might adjust to take into account everyone's perspectives and interests. And one of the fun things that we have always done every once in a while is letting the kids have a kids planet day. And they love doing this. So it's a full day where we just let them take the reins. They need to research what they want to do in a given place. They have to figure out how does it fit within a budget that we give them for the day, navigate through researching how will we use public transportation to get from A to B. That gives them obviously a sense of deep buy-in. And then when they're not doing it, they also have an appreciation of how much work and effort it takes to go into that. And I think, they're just more excited to go with the flow and actually say thank you. Like, it is a lot of work to plan those kind of things. So it's a good balance. One of the important touchstones for us has always been to sit down together as a family for dinner. And we always start off by sharing something that's made us thankful that day. And it can't be vague. It's actually similar feedback that I would give the kids on their journal entries all the time. It needs to be something really specific. And it's such a small practice, but it really centers all of us and helps us reflect on the day and just be appreciative of the little things or moments of joy each day. So that's one touchstone. And then one other thing that I've done since coming back from the trip is make sure to check in with myself every few months or so to make sure how I'm spending my time is in balance with my priorities. And this is something both Randy and I do now. Actually, we wrote down things on the road that were important to us and that we wanted to continue to make time for when we got back into the day-to-day hustle and bustle. And some of them are pretty banal, like making sure to carve out time for exercise or getting outside for regular walks. But some of them are more fundamental, like making sure to carve out time for the efforts that align with our purpose, like volunteering for me or continual learning on areas of passion. So when things get crazy in one place or out of whack, it's a recalibration we can do to stay aligned and focused on what's most important to us. I'd have told myself to allow for more downtime. I think we have a tendency to be so go, 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 and all the places we visit have so much richness to see and do. We tended to pack our days, especially early on. And that's not really sustainable, especially on an extended trip. And it definitely led to some tension for us as a family. The kids kind of revolted a couple times and, let us know that they needed more concerted time to work on journaling or their assignments, and even just asked for some mornings where they could sleep in or nights to chill out and, connect with friends back home and just have a little more quiet time baked in. So we definitely got better about doing that as we realized our rhythms, but it would have been great to do that from the start.